Call the names. Wake the room. Wake the room. Rex, Pam Ray, Naomi, Fastiana, Babbler, Monarch, Soul, Jojo, Gray Eyes, fill my eyes. Poets assemble. No masks, no manners. Say it plain or say it broken. Monday night in the garden of enlightenment. Low light lit minds, every line got intent. Clock ticks crooked and the room turns vigilant. Quiet so loud you can hear what the tension meant. Then it slips after midnight, manners get murdered. Nice little masks get cracked by a word or a murmur. Twisted Tuesdays twist truth till it turns on its heel. Clean cut faces go strange when the dark gets real. You can feel that shift, that slick little slip when the grin stays sweet, but the eyes don't sit. Like the room grew ribs, like the walls grew ears, like the hush got hands and it's pulling you near. And the words don't rest, they press, put a heel on the chest, leave a dent in the breath. Every line like a knock from the back of the brain, like you came in one shape. You won't leave the same. Late night poets, where the room leans in, where the sharp gets shown in the soft door dim. To the pull you can't ignore. We don't just read the night, we make it something more. Say it plain, say it broken. Late night poets. Wednesday brace parts, center part sink down the spine. Half halo, half hazard, both hands in the light. In the art of seduction walks off through the smoke. Silk on the tongue with the blade in the joke. Books and bards, wakes dust in the depth of the shelves. Old ghosts lean out and start naming themselves. In our coffins selling art, the ache gets a voice. Pain stands up straight and makes silence a choice. Then break on through when the dead boogies weigh. When the masses sink but the pulses pray. Echoes in the dark go hunting in the fear. That thing with no name starts ringing in your ear. Say it. Some water it down, let it bite, let it bloom, let it burn through the crowd. Back company grins like a bruise, dressed smart in rhythm and rhyme, puts a boot through the heart. Late night poets, where the room leans in, where the sharp gets shown in the soft door dim. Late night poets, hear the whole thing shift. From a whisper in the ribs to a line that lifts. From the darkened edge of doubt to the pull you can't ignore. We don't just read the night, we make it something more. Say it plain, say it broken. Late night poets. Some come shattered, some come slick. Some speak honey with a blade in it. Some sound velvet, some sound wire. Some walk in low and take the room higher. Some come holy, some come liars. That's the thing, this ain't filler for the dead space, no. There's a pulse with a pen, this is blood with the net go. This is breath with a backbone, ink with a crown, loud mics like nerves, truth laid bare in the round. This is the beautiful mess, the bruise and the bloom, the line that cuts clean and makes a little room. Late souls, wide eyes, all nerve in the dark, a room full of hearts beating hard through the dark. Wake through something more. Late night poets. When the clock slips past polite, we tell the truth. L&P, we love you. Stay frosty.
Hello and welcome to Echoes in the Dark. The darkness in each of us needs an opportunity to be heard, understood, and embraced. So whether it comes in the form of a whisper or a scream, we will carry forth the haunting echoes. We will carry forth the poetry that expresses the haunting echoes within your soul. I am Pam Ray, and with me is my co-host, IntimidusRex. Rex and I are poets on a website called All Poetry with a group of poets called Late Night Poets. Tonight is our dark poetry show, and if you find that is not your cup of tea, please check out our other shows. We have 1 to 2 shows per night on a variety of styles of topics and poetry, something to suit everybody's taste. Also, make sure when you get a chance to check out the poetry anthologies put out by Late Night Poets on Amazon, because when you purchase those, you not only get amazing poetry, you help support these radio shows. And hello, Rex. How goes it?
All right, what's that?
Oh, let's see. We had a beautiful day today. It made it up to 65, blue sky, sun shining. I went for 2 separate walks, which, as I said earlier, was bad on my allergies, but just really uplifted my spirits. I did a little bit of cleaning, a whole lot of poetry reading. And didn't really do much cooking. I did cook a venison roast, which my stepfather had given us, and I figured it was time to bring it out of the freezer and cook that up. So that was tasty for sure. But just all in all, a great day. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you and other cool poets and delving into some dark poetry. Now, how about you? What have you been up to today, and how is your weather treating you?
Hit 90 again. Light winds.
My goodness.
Nice. And right now it's raining like hell.
Well, that'll be good. That'll be good for the gardens. And and having a little bit of wind really makes a difference. I mean, especially what do we? Oh, hold on. What have we got going here? Oh, I must have accidentally. Hold on. Let me remove myself. All right. There we go. Oh my goodness gracious, that was horrible. Ugh. I don't know why that sometimes happens, but I don't know why the Pam that I put on my Kindle Fire sometimes all of a sudden jumps up on the studio without any buttons being pushed, But it sounds like you had a beautiful day. Now, as I always say, Robbie, not Robbie, sorry. I'm just saying hi to Robbie at the same time talking. As I always say, 90s is just way too hot for me. 80s is way too hot for me. But, it does sound like with the breeze and stuff and getting a little bit of rain that it makes for a nice day. I'm saying hi to a couple of people, and so I see I see Yumpy. It's good to see him back. Just echoes in the dark. I like that, Rex. It's good to see Yumpy and Robbie and T Manzano. just, and of course, anybody who's listening in, either now, like on YouTube or Facebook, and anybody who is going to be listening later, of course, you're all really very much appreciated. And so for tonight's show, it's actually broken up into 3 parts. First of all, we have our last few carryovers from the Echoes contest, which were 3 or 4 songs and poems offered up by Errant Panther. So once again, thank you, Errant, for offering up the inspiration for that contest. Then we're going to go into Goblin Rights, Goblin Inspired Rights. That was a contest I ran, which didn't have a huge response, but that's okay. I enjoyed the rights that it did get, and I think goblins are just make for a dark topic, but make for a fun dark topic. And then, if they're needed, I ran a pre-writes contest where it was a 12 spots only pre-write contest, which had an artwork done by Vitaly S. Alexius and a quote by Tacitus, which is, "They make a desert and call it peace." And if we don't get to that, or we don't get to finish all of those will be at the beginning of the next Echoes in the Dark. So yeah, I mean, just a great variety, great lineup of dark poetry. And so, I'm definitely looking forward to it. All right, Rex.
All right.
Shall we go ahead and get this ball rolling?
Yep. Where Maps Burn by Jody Melton. There is a land where winter learned to speak in sirens, not as weather, but as warning. Where wheat once bowed in golden agreement with the wind, now bends under a different kind of gravity. Boots, steel, the patient weight of history, repeating its old, unkind lessons. And still they rise. Not as headlines, not as statistics pinned to maps like broken insects in glass cases, but as neighbors passing bread through candlelit stairwells, as mothers memorizing the sound of each incoming night by the shape of its silence. There are cities that now live in halves. One half still remembers laughter and trams. The other half learns the architecture of shattered glass and how to sleep without fully closing the door to hope. Yet hope is stubborn here. It hides in basements with children's drawings, in soldiers writing names on their hearts like prayers they refuse to forget, in old men tending gardens as if tomorrow is still negotiable with the soil. The world watches through flickering screens, trying to translate smoke into meaning, trying to measure grief in kilometers, but grief does not obey measurement. It spreads like weather that has lost its calendar. Still, somewhere beneath the noise, a violin remembers its shape. A baker still counts loaves. A stranger still becomes a brother without asking permission. And the land, bruised but breathing, keeps whispering beneath everything. I am not only what is taken from me, I am what remains when everything else is gone. And poem.
Great read there, Rex. This is an amazing write, as always, by Jody Melton. This was inspired by Echoes Amongst the Ruins, The Ruin by Errant Panther, which actually, because we separated the rights into what they were inspired by, I believe that all are carryovers, except for the one that's an extra one from Errant that was on topic, are inspired by Echoes Amongst the Ruin by Errant Panther. Um, this had powerful lines. I gave this one the bronze in the contest. Amazing imagery and metaphors. Um, I I like how this speaks on the struggle of the world and the individual throughout history. The heavy weight of, as he says, the patient weight of history repeating its old unkind lesson, because sadly some lessons have to be repeated because we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And I like how this speaks to me also on the idea of learning to think for yourself. And still they rise, not as headlines, not as statistics pinned to maps like broken insects in glass cases, but as neighbors passing bread through candlelit stairwells, as mothers memorizing the sound of each coming night by the shape of its silence. I feel like that speaks on also I thought that times of war, times of despair and destruction will bring out the best and the worst and the best in mankind, you know and just brilliant imagery and metaphors, wonderful dark right on lives torn apart in a world of violence. Very well done by Jody Melton. And your thoughts, Rex?
Um, yeah, it does walk on the note of history. The idea that despite everything that comes about and the new age adorning, there is still that note. Lessons that don't get learned. Why? Because repetition is an easy, solvable fixture when someone wants what you have. And hey, you know what? If they can take it, they can take it, and they will. So the idea, you still live within that note of possibilities when things become uh, hard on one end, it comes hard on everybody's end. But I still, and on the back end of this, kind of reminds me of some places that get so used to this that you find out where there's stuff going on in one arena of a city. You walk down 2 blocks and you've got a baker still counts loaves. A stranger will become a brother without asking permission. That night, that easy note of you get so inured by what's going on around you that it almost becomes part of the landscape as a whole, and so you don't pay much attention to it anymore. Why? Well, it's there every day. Yet, still got to live, still got to work, still got to make bread, still got to feed.
Oh, absolutely. That is very true, Rex. Well said there, because despite the sorrows we go through and the hardships we go through, life, carries on. So well said. All right. And what do we got next?
We have got Persia by Minnie B. Yours.
All right. And 7,000 years have passed since your birthing, civilization of artists and artisans, of weavers, silversmiths and metal workers, of astronomers, architects, mathematicians, musicians, and poets, the erotic, haunting quatrains of the Rubaiyat imprinted deep within your secret soul. O Persia, where are they now? Bound up, burned, bombed by greed-lusted colonizers and warmongers, your children's faces covered with dirt and blood, bones and dust layered in what could be and never will, your aqueducts and libraries, lanes of ash, your once tolerant spirit chained with intolerance, your forefathers buried, your hope stolen. O Persia, might you rout out the invaders, the occupiers, the usurpers, Might you scrub out the stain of corruption and heal your families? Might you unbind yourself, restore your greatness, flourish again through art, craft, science, music, poetry, and tolerance? Might you rise once more in glory, O Persia and poem? And your thoughts, Rex?
Well, this is walk back in time. Kind of hits on that idea of that which was before what is now, going back quite a long way. The idea of Persia, which is Iran now, but Persia once a long time ago was that note of where is it? The sort of uh, the artisans, the weavers, the silversmiths, the metalworkers, the astronomers, the architects, mathematicians, musicians, and poets. There was a time when they were part and parcel of the library at Alexandria, where things were actually traded, knowledge, the thoughts of what they've discovered and what they're looking to discover, and sharing with other people of like-mindedness. So this paints a very different time from where they are now. Well, especially over the last 50 years. So she kind of bites the note of returning to what once they were, because they weren't a pure Islamic republic back in the day. They had, I forget what their religion was, but it's a very old religion, and it did walk on that note of much of what she's offered up in here. And yes, there were a lot of Iranians who I think some today still view themselves as Persians, but those that left Iran back in the late 70s, early 80s, they refused to be called Iranians. They wanted to be referred to as Persians, because that's who and what they were from time immemorial.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Great comment there, Rex. Yeah, in fact, Minnie B even says in her response to my comment that she has friends who immigrated here from Iran when the first Ayatollah took over, and they still wanted to be called Persians. I really like the imagery in this. It's a very well balanced piece. I like how Minnie B does bring us back into the past while at the same time writing about current events. She introduces us to the history of Iran, the history of the area of Persia, and that all that it had to offer up in the world of art and philosophy, the beauty of the poetry and the artwork from that time period. I like the declaration of "Oh, Persia," that idea that it feels like paying tribute. The repetition of that line gives it a nice lyrical quality. The second stanza focuses on what's happening now. And I like the questions, how it becomes more and more about the questions being asked in the third stanza, like, can you return to the glory, the beauty, the greatness? Like, can you flourish once again in science, music, and poetry and tolerance? I think this is definitely a strong right on the idea of a once great empire falling into ruins and hopefully being able to once again rise up. So beautifully written and very well done. All right. And back to you, Rex.
Single Forever by M.J. Nappy. The heart is a revolving door, open and unstoppable, a whirling juggernaut, twisting minds and turning stomachs, A palate of affection with great hunger, my ravenous roaring appetite sated by the smallest crumb of possibility. Sweet dates overflow with bitter deja vu. Mountains reveal between lines of chit-chat, casual dates end quickly at hello. Being repelled by their instant attraction, in my mind I'm already alone and home. Love's welcome is worn out, tired of empty, tedious talk, drowning in shallowness, wondering if it's mine or hers. Her mind looks to dreams and our future. My eyes seek an ending and escape. Can all these women really be broken? It must be me, but oddly, I'm okay with it. And poem.
Great, great read there, Rex. This is just a haunting, beautiful, and heartfelt write. I honestly don't know which prompt this was written to, um, but it still is nicely written. Like I like the flow of this. I like how it has this strong emotional impact. It is a write on someone who feels lost. They feels as if that love is never going to find them, and I like how he brings forth the thoughts of self-doubt, and trying to learn to be okay with not being in a relationship. And there's some nice lines throughout, but I did especially like a palate of affection with great hunger, my ravenous roaring appetite sated by the smallest crumb of possibility, sweet dates overflow with bitter deja vu. And I like the play on words of sweet dates, because it's the idea of going on dates, but it's also that idea of that the eating a date, the sweetness of it, and how it's that temporary satisfaction that suddenly goes bitter. So really nice lines and very well done by MJ Nappy. um and Rex, your thoughts?
He's biting up the notion how dating is kind of fruitless, despite the want and the thought, sated by the smallest crumb of possibility. Sweet dates overflow with bitter deja vu. Uh, and that opening stanza kind of walks the uh, revolving door, open, unstoppable, whirling juggernaut, twisting minds and turning stomachs. There's almost a quiet note to fickleness in the idea of, oh, if something else pops up real quickly, hey, it's the lurch for you, Bubba. Uh, Empty, tedious talk, drowning in shallowness, wondering if it's mine or hers. So he's questioning a note. Why? Because he's had bitter experiences with the idea that it's not a very pleasant scene, even if it starts with the idea of because he hits between lines of chit chat. So that kind of walks on the note of dating sites or TikTok, whatever, all these other little tidbits out there. And that note, my eyes seek an ending and escape. Can all these women really be broken? Well, there's quite a bit of quite a bit of that on both ends, but it must be me. But oddly, I'm okay with it. So understanding what he's looking for, but seems the transference doesn't come across the same way. So he's kind of left with the same bitter taste in his mouth over how it just seems to be the same constant note, date after date.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that is so true. Well said there, Rex. All right, and what do we got next?
An Unsilenced Mind by Rose Spring 41.
All right, get back to where I need to be, and here we go. Echoes in the night, midnight's muffled scream, dancing shadows distract us from the thoughts that should remain unseen. Starlight kiss begs to linger on parted lips of hopeful youth, but gets strangled by the darkness of age's ruthless noose. Aegon the dreamer encouraged them to fly. Let them land on make-believe islands built on bridges in the sky, for their dreams will protect them from the screeching sounds of the echoes in the night that whisper words profound. And poem. I have to say that for this particular show, I think this is, for an Echoes in the Dark show, I think this is just a wonderful poem. And your thoughts, Rex?
Um, I think that opening stanza kind of walks on a note of naivete, but you get in that second stanza and you get right into the angle of uh, youth going into age ends up with that jaded note of reality. And then you said them, uh, egg on the dreamers, encourage them to fly, let them land on make-believe islands built on bridges in the sky. Hope for their dreams will protect them from screeching sounds of the echoes of the night, but that whisper words profound. Sometimes you got to have a little bit of coming down to earth so you don't get lost in that dream and it takes you nowhere. So sometimes you need those whispers profound, if nothing else, at least to ground you. So that note of an unsilenced mind. Notes to self.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Great comment there, Rex. Yeah, it did make me think of the idea of, the voices in your mind, and the way we always, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes we're so negative in the way that we talk to ourselves, that, and we got to find our way out of that. We got to, replace that negativity with new thoughts. I did think this had a kind of a nice surreal vibe in the darkness. An excellent write that in part spoke to me on dreamers protected by the harshness of reality. How part of the reason that people find themselves drawn into daydreaming is it's their mind protecting them from the horrors that are going on around them, or that the darkness that they have been through. But of course um that dream, those daydreams, they're very fragile, and I think that you know um comes through in the imagery in this. And but also, like, I like how she writes about needing protection, for their dreams will protect them. That sometimes people, especially people who have been through traumatic experiences, need to have some way to protect the fragility of their mind, in order to be able to move forward in life, and find that path to healing. So excellent, right, by Rose Spring 41, and very well done. um and all right, so what do we got next, Rex?
When more than shadows are echoed by Flipsider. Watching the darkness, seeing all that is creeping within, far more than just what is seen. Never thought there would be any need to do as much as this, more than what they say, hearing the darkened fear of which they speak. Actually glad not be once again left in the clouds, preferring to know what is really all around. You see, this has happened before, chased after until released, inside the toxic revived, lost and found. suggest that you also stay aware. They are not here to play games, but to cause you to pray, to actually die, realizing they really exist, to grab onto beyond your skin, seize your soul, then rip and tear. Looking within everyone for breaking through weakness, they might hide within shadows. Now say hello to far more than just darkness. And poem.
Great read there, Rex. This is a wonderful dark write by Flipsider, who's always a very talented poet. This has a nice flow to it. Um, a wonderful imagery and metaphors. I feel also like there's this great consistency in tone. Um, I like how this speaks to me on being cast aside into the shadows of feeling as I don't know, it has a very haunting feeling. It has a sense of feeling worthless and lost and being a victim to the games that people play. And I think there's strong lines throughout, but I especially like you see this has happened before, chased after until released, inside the toxic derived, lost and found, suggests that you also stay aware that they are not here to play games, but to cause you to pray, to actually die, realizing they really exist, to grab onto beyond your skin, seize your soul, then rip and tear. That is very visceral, very strong. It's an excellent write on how one needs to be constantly vigilant on the evil and the darkness that exists within this world and within ourselves. So excellent write by Flipsider and very well done. And your thoughts, Rex?
Um, it's all about fear, and part of this, I think, is maybe the idea hits on that chased after until released inside the toxic derived lost and found might be uh, mental issues. So you hit on that note of the darkness and what creeps within. It's because your mind conjures up quite a bit, gives you your own form of hell, even though it might not be real. You get to see a whole lot more because your mind works as a great note to imagination. And on the back end, looking within everyone for breaking through weakness, they might hide within shadows. Now say hello to far more than darkness. I do on the back end as well as facing your fears, and you don't have to worry about the darkness.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said there, Rex. Well said there. Um, and all right. So, what do we have next?
Relentless by John Poem.
All right. And give me just a. Oh, wait. Are you? No, it's my turn to read, right? Yes. All right. So give me just a moment. All right. No matter what comes your way, keep the faith. Like a mangy cat face to face with a junkyard dog and a pit bull, bow your back and hiss like a great blue heron. Has your bullfrog life halfway in this beak? Hold on until you get free. Go to sleep with courage, wake up with resolve. There is no problem you cannot solve. Like a salmon swimming upstream, jump the falls, have the faith of the Nazarene. You are capable of all things. The world is waiting for the strength you bring. Your possibilities are endless. Let your positive nature be the relentless song you sing. And poem. And your thoughts, Rex? Oh, did Rex drop? That's a good question. I guess so. All right. Let's go ahead and bring him back on. Maybe? No? Are you there, Rex? Let's try it now. Okay, now I can add him to the stage. All right. Welcome back. Hello? All right. Well, let me see if
Hello.
people can hear me. Hey, Rex, welcome back.
I don't know what's going on, but it's funky.
Huh. Very weird. Very weird. All right. Did you get a chance to read that poem, or do you want me to
Yeah, and
comment
I've already
first?
commented on it twice. All right, it's all this. It's on that positive note in the back end. You can't be that idea of the one who's the glass half empty instead of the glass half full type. Because if you're going to look at it that way, then you can't walk a, a faithful and positive note and believe in yourself in doing so. Because why? You're always looking for the downside instead of the possibility of what comes next.
Oh, absolutely. Well said there, Rex. Well said there. Yeah, this definitely to me was not a dark write. I mean, it's beautifully written. I like the message in it. I got a big kick out that he mentioned, that one cartoon that you see the bullfrog choking the hare on that's trying to swallow it. And, it says, it has the caption, never give up. So I think there's wonderful imagery and metaphors. There's definitely delightful lines throughout, and it is nicely written. It's a wonderful write that finding the light and music within your soul to hang on to, even as you are going through dark times. So nicely written by John Poem, and very well done. And I would like to mention to Robbie that we have, I believe, one last carryover, and then we will be going into goblins. So I will be bringing you on after we've commented on the last carryover, Robbie, so you can join us for goblins. All right. And with that being said, Rex, what do we have next?
Silence Leaking Black by Aaron Panda.
All right, and we do have a SoundCloud for this. So give me a moment and I will go grab that SoundCloud. Do, 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 do.
Silence Leaking Black by Errant Panther. All the rage that burns through a heart from unkempt sorrows, etched upon another's sleeve. Language escaping thought before falling against a motionless tongue, leaving nowhere else to turn beyond prayer for inner calm. Rivers forming in tears of silence leaking black, as another soul that epitomized innocence is left to bleed on an empty street. End poem.
Great read and write here, Aaron. Thank you for the SoundCloud. It is very much appreciated. And thank you again for offering up the inspiration for this particular contest. And just a reminder, everyone, if you're unable to call in, the next best thing is to make a recording of your poem, because then we get to hear your poetry in your voice or how you would like it to be heard. And Rex, your thoughts?
Um, well, it's almost kind of hits on that note of talking about a murder, the rage up top, and you end it with another soul that epitomizes innocence is left to bleed on an empty street. It walks that idea of taking out the rage in one's own heart against someone else who does not have any reflection to why you're angry in the first place. So, brutalization and you know what? Letting it all go. And then you hit that note of leaving nowhere else to turn beyond prayer for inner calm. It's still that raging note of thought, um, rivers forming and tears of silence leaking black. I don't believe that's for the intruder, so to speak, but maybe somewhere on the inside he offers up, oh God, what the hell have I done? But that doesn't seem to be a workable thought. I'm going to just go with the idea that it is what it is. You brutalize someone, leave them out to shed whatever they got left in them, or to die on the street.
I like that. Great thoughts shared there, Rex. Um, yeah, it's strong lines, amazing imagery and metaphors. Um, this just in part speaks to me on innocent people that become a victim to evil. It speaks to me on how difficult it can be to heal from that journey of when the heart is broken and the soul is damaged. I really, and I think there's strong lines throughout, but I especially like the second stanza because it speaks on the importance of words, language escaping thought before falling against a motionless tongue, leaving nowhere else to turn beyond prayer for inner calm. Um, to me, that also speaks on the idea of how sometimes we speak without thinking, and especially when we allow our emotions to guide us. Sometimes we find ourselves just bringing forth those emotions, bringing forth that anger and that has become a part of who we are, allowing that darkness within us to echo and leave behind with it a sense of emptiness, a sense of self-destruction. So excellent right by Errant Panther, and very well done. All right, so that was the last of our carryovers, and we're now going to go into the topic of goblins. So, what do we have next, Rex?
Little Orphaned Annie by James Whitcomb Riley. Little orphaned Annies come to our house to stay, and wash the cups and saucers up, and brush the crumbs away, and shoo the chickens off the porch, and dust the hearth and sweep, and make the fire and bake the bread, and earn her board and keep. And all us other children, when the supper things is done, we set around the kitchen fire and has the mostest fun, a listening to the witch tales that Annie tells about, and the goblins that gets you if you don't watch out. Once there was a little boy wouldn't say his prayers, and when he went to bed at night away upstairs, his mammy heard him holler, and his daddy heard him bawl, and when they turned the kibbles down, he wasn't there at all. And they seeked him in the rafter room, and cubby hole and press, and seeked him up the chimbley flume, and everywheres, I guess. But all they ever found was his pants and roundabouts, and the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. And one time a little girl 'ud allus laugh and grin, and make fun of everyone and all the blood and kin. And once there was company, and all folks was there, She mocked 'em and shocked 'em and said she didn't care. And this she kicked her heels and turned to run and hide. They was two great big black things a standing by her side, and they snatched her through the ceiling before she knew what she'd bout. And the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. And little orphan Annie says, when the blaze is blue, and the lank whip sputters, and the wind goes woo-hoo, and you hear the crickets quit, and the moon is gray, and the lightning bugs and dew is all squenched away, you better mind your parents and your teachers fond and dear, and cherish them that loves you, and dry the orphan's tear, and help the poor and needy ones at clusters all about, or the gobblegums get ya if you don't watch out. And poem.
Perfect read there, Rex. I just knew that your voice would be just absolutely fabulous for that classic poem. You know, I found this poem an absolute delight with its use of dialect and rhyme and flow. I really enjoy the classic poetry of James Whitcomb Riley. Now, this is not my favorite goblin poem. I will admit that. Um, but it's still really fun. Like my absolute favorite goblin poem and one of my favorite poems of all time is The Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti, which but that's a real like that's another one I would love to hear in your voice, Rex, but it's a like basically a half hour or more read. It is an extremely long poem. In the contest, I did offer up a few lines from it. I offered up a piece of artwork. Like basically, I offered up a few different prompts on the topic of goblins, but I also told people that they could just write on that topic. You know, as I said, it's something that's dark, but you can also have fun with it. I actually didn't know about this poem until Way Down Upon Joy shared her write with me, which we're going to be reading. Um, and it was inspired by this poem. So I thought, well, not only am I going to put her right in the contest, I'm going to put this one up too, because it fits really well with the theme. Um, you know, and it's just it's a fun read, you know, and it's a look at the type of poetry, the type of fairy tale type poetry, not fairy tale, but you know, like how fairy tales were used to teach children lessons, or a lot of monsters and myths were created in order to warn children about consequences, and that's what this poem does. And I would like to welcome Robbie to the show. Welcome, Robbie. Glad you could join us.
Hello, this is fun. I just, like I was saying in the chat before, I was obsessed with the Green Goblin and he's being a
Yes,
poetic inspiration. And it's like, so when I saw this show come up, I was like, yes, yes, this is perfect. I would have loved to have heard
absolutely.
you do. Oh, sorry, I'm speaking over you. Yeah, if Rex had done a gobble, because it says gobble ins, and if he did like a gobble voice at the end, or a gobble sound effect, like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what did you think of this classic poem?
Well, it very much had the goblin feel because the cadence and the structure, but also the setting, because like goblins are really tied, like you mentioned, the market, right? And they seem to be tied into like the marketplace, and places where people commune, and that, I think, because like with these kind of creatures in general, like the fairy folk, the fae, goblins, kobolds, and all those kind of creatures, a lot of times you think of like the markets, and that, like where a lot of people gather and meet, because that's where they can meet, make deals, or like kind of meet. There's a lot of humans to meet, and try to co-opt them, or make deals with them, or you know uh, decay their morality. It's like, I have a deal for you. All you have to do is, is snitch on your mom. Then I'll give you all that you want. That kind of thing. I hurt my voice doing that. Oops. I
Oh,
did. The
yeah.
back of my throat all of a sudden was like, oh. But yeah, it has that feel to it. And it, like, just like you say, Pam, this topic is so middle of the line, where you can either have more fun with it, or you can make it really dark, or you could be
Oh,
like me. I would
yes.
be, oh yeah, I would probably do half and half. I'd have like fun with it, but then towards the end I would start getting darker. And I wish I wrote for this, but I think now I'm finally uh, in a place where I'm going to start writing for contests again. I feel fine, but I've gotten caught up in so many things of phone calls and having to settle things for, like, coverage and all that for the accident that I had in that, and that just takes up all your focus. But that's all finally done now, I think. So I think I'm going to start writing for contests again. But it was wonderful to hear a quality classic poem on goblins. I loved it, and to have Rex read in his voice, like you said, is perfect. So it was a real treat, and it's a perfect way to start up the show.
It is. I have to agree. I have to agree. Yeah, the thing is, like, okay, if you have never read or listened to The Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti, I highly recommend you do that. In fact, I actually have a video of the reading of that poem plus the link to the poem in the contest if you want to check that out. But yeah, I came up with the idea of goblins when I was actually watching a video on the Red Hats. The Red Hats are a particular goblin who wear obviously red hats. And the reason their hats are red is because in order to live, they have to wear hats dipped in the blood of humans. And so, they're kind of like, there's goblins on different levels. Like, there's your more mischievous goblins, or you also you don't limit it to just goblins. Like, there's different creatures, as you were mentioning, who are similar to goblins. Like, there's brownies, there's leprechauns, gremlins, pixies, gnomes, kobolds, as you were saying. And there's like different extremes. Like, some of these creatures can be, and oftentimes when it benefits them, helpful. But they can also, like the red hats, be extremely evil. Like, if a red hat is luring you, if a red hat is tricking you, it's in order to murder you and get your blood. So yeah, it definitely, like it's been already mentioned, it's just one of those topics where you can go dark, but you can also have some fun with it. And Rex, you really did an amazing job with that read. Your thoughts on this classic poem?
Well, it reads like a British, but it's not. So I guess that would be I mean, if it was, he would have gone the other route with it. And even though I went with a kind of a British twist to it, it would have gone like a little orphan Annie's come home to our house to stay, and wash the cups and saucers, and up the brush crumbs away, and shoo the chickens off the porch, and dust the hearth and sweep, and make the fire and bake the bread and earn a board and keep. That note, I think, if it was British angle, it would have dropped the H's and you give it a bit more. But this work says, surprised me. Uh, it kind of hits on that idea of out in the Midwest in the early days of the 20th century, where you do have these little homesteads, and you got to have these little tales that keep the kids, because you know what? There's a lot of stuff rolling around there out in the dark that you got to worry about. And that note of the little boy wasn't under his covers, uh, wasn't there at all. Kind of had me thinking of a Twilight Zone episode where the kid fell off his bed, rolled under the bed, and kind of disappeared into another dimension through the wall. You could hear him, but you couldn't see him.
Right, right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great observations there, Rex. Because yeah, James Whitcomb Riley was from Indiana. He was actually known as the Hoosier poet. And a lot of his poetry did use the dialect of that region, of the country folk of that time period and region. So very cool. Very cool. All right. And what do we got next, Rex?
We have A Woman's Smart Choice by RLJ Zawarji. So, Robbie, you're first in. You're up next.
All
Oh, you're
right.
first.
Let me just get my mic up
Oh,
here. Yep. Okay. A Woman's Smart Choice. Those devious goblins gives those women a poisonous treat, which certainly isn't sweet and definitely isn't fit for any robins to eat. So they'll both frowns with no plans to eat this poisonous meal that could cause them both to lose their breathing sound, which is such a low down scandal that should just burn completely up like a flaming candle on a gloomy day that the devil displays to ruin these women's good ways. But their dependency on God is where their faith and their love stays. To hopefully reverse these goblins' devious curse, that just has to much thirst to make these women feel totally worse. But no, those women has this strong spirit of a good nurse to totally heal whatever these goblins chooses to spill in these frames. They truly loves how to show how their love feels, which those goblins just can't see because romancing with the devil is where they've chosen to be, with no plans to allow God to command a devious heart and soul, because their devilish emotions really demands to dispose of these women's good nature as planned, so they both can take over God's beautiful land, which God will never allow them to possess with their creepy personalities and hands. Because God is the best choice to guide these devious goblins to lose their evil voice in a beautiful and peaceful and beautiful day in nature, where these gorgeous women should be totally enjoying God's beautiful creation, which they both chooses to loved on with no hesitation. So these goblins should just leave and just make these women and just give these women a chance to grieve from this terrible spirit of these goblins' disease, which never had a motive to ever please, which really is a total tease. Because Cupid could have brought those women good men. That's the total opposite of these goblins' devious sins. Because good men would make those two women fall in love and also grin because of their good spirits to positively win. So no, these goblins' devious ways, they has no place to lay, because God's good spirits is here to stay. But hopefully those goblins will learn to obey these good things that God just loves to display, which prevents these women's souls from becoming cloudy gray. End poem. Boy, that was a long poem. I had to switch off my goblin voice after a while because I was like, I can't do it for a poem that long.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Bubba. I didn't take a look at it first.
I know, right? I was about a
Right?
quarter of the way. I was like,
But
okay, I got to switch this off.
yeah. But great read there, Robbie. I definitely see the connection with the goblin market, which I said the poem itself wasn't necessarily a prompt. I mean, it could be, but because it's so long. But I had offered up as the header painting in the contest, the Goblin Market painting by Hilda Coe, and then this quote from the poem The Goblin Market: "We must not look at goblin men, we must not buy their fruits. Who knows upon what soil they fed their hungry, thirsty roots?" Um, and I definitely see that connection, though, RLJ did take it into kind of his own direction for sure. And Rex, your thoughts on this poem?
I'm going to go with a fractured fairy tale because you've got the note of the goblins, but drops in that thought of Cupid on the one side, the goblins being the opposite of Cupid, trying to draw the women into another realm while they're thinking on the good and positive, faithful side with God. Yet they want to drown the women in the backhanded note of the darkness because they've been romancing with the devil, so they know what they can do and inhabit within people with their little tricks and teases. So, but at the end, hey, the fractured fairy tale comes right back and says, "No, you didn't win, goblins. Try another day."
There you go. Well said there, Rex. And Robbie, you did a great read of that. Your thoughts?
Well, I like the way it was written was like very goblin-y sort of voice because it's kind of like actually like a Smeagol. You remember like I wants the precious. Like it has that kind of verbiage um with the way the like the verbs in that are announced in here. Gives those women or where's that part? Well, yeah, there's a few parts like that, and it gave it that sort of goblin-y sort of voice, and that's why I started to morph into the goblin. But yeah, so it had that to it, and I noticed the Cupid thing too. And it's interesting when you come across that because then when you have a poem about a goblin or about goblins, and then Cupid enters into the fray, you know that there's some real tension going on there because Cupid is such a different figure. So you know that there's something important being announced in terms of the mythos that's being presented in the poem. And so yeah, that really captured my attention, and I wanted to see where that had gone or where that would go. And it was interesting the direction that they took it in. And I had that sort of that goblin menace of when you have goblins on the darker side, you get that feeling of a stalkerish sort of feeling where they're going around and they're trying to figure out who's the most vulnerable, right? Like who's the ones that they can whose is the ones, as they would say, is that they can corrupt and that sort of thing. And that's something that's very I've always found that scary when some sort of like a deity or creature or whatever is purposefully stalking humans that way to like not to kill but to see who they can corrupt. That's scary to me because corruption is like worse than death because it ruins your life, and you have to live with that. Whereas death is death, but at least it's ended. So yeah, that's really scary.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said there, Robbie. Yeah, it's interesting because I had not read this poem. I mean, I read it, but when I read it, I did not see it as being in the goblin's voice. I felt like because of the way the narrative was written, it was actually a narrative of someone who makes observations about goblins. Now, as far as stalking and goblins go, I will say, in my honest opinion, I think Cupid is a goblin. I mean, he stalks people, he shoots them with arrows, he has them fall in love against their will. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I don't know if RLJ meant it this way, but Cupid is right there with the goblins, But yeah, this is to me a poem on the battle between good and evil, and the idea that with God, with a higher power, there's even an opportunity for the most wicked of creatures, such as goblins, to find a sense of peace, to find the goodness within themselves. I also like what Rex had to say, because he mentioned the idea like of the men and their thoughts, like the pointing of fingers at these wicked women. And so I do feel like this in part does speak on that idea of, if you go back in history and in times when fingers were pointed at women, oh, because of this you are evil, and because you do this and because you think that, and I don't know, like the whole idea of there's a certain irony in the idea that the goblins represent the evil of mankind, and the thoughts that RLJ brings into this, that these women had to be saved from their baser nature by the goodness of men who, at the same time were murdering people just for being themselves. So, excellent right, and very well done. All right, Rex, back to you.
One up. If you don't watch out, way down upon joint.
All right. Getting back. The first poem I remember is the one my mother shared. It seems as if she served it up as if to keep me scared. When young, I wondered why she did and wished that she'd refrain. I knew that all my wishing then was always just in vain. Whenever I would act the child as children always do, she'd sing the orphaned Annie poem to change my point of view. And if I said I don't care and turned away to pout, I'd hear, and the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. The last poem I remember when it came her time to go was the one that she oft repeated those many years ago. You better mind your parents and your teachers, found and dear. Ah, cherish them at loves you, and dry the orphan's tear, and help the poor and needy ones that clusters all about. Ere the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. So now I keep a careful eye for spirits passing through, and all because my mother might be offering a clue. The goblins that she sang about, the voice within my mind. And now I know she taught me well with rhythm and with rhyme. I'll always see a hint of her, of this I do not doubt. The mirror quick reflects this fact, and she's not moving out. End poem. And this actually was not part of the contest. It was one that she shared with me. And of course, as soon as I read it, I knew that not only did I have to put this on the topic board to be read tonight, but also that classic poem that inspired it, Little Orphaned Annie by James Whitcomb Riley. So, you know, and Robbie, your thoughts?
Well, I like that this was very much directly a poem that spoke directly on that whole experience and that whole practice, like you were talking about at the beginning of the show, of having the tales and the poems and that of warning, to help keep kids safe. And that's the thing, especially back then, like you didn't have like what we have now with daycares and things like that, and you had to go out into nature to get your food and all of that. And so kids had a lot more exposure to danger, so you really had to do a lot more to keep them safe. And so this is like a self-reflexive poem in a way, because the poem is written sort of like in a structure of one of those warning tales, like a similar sort of rhyme structure. So it's interesting. I've always found it interesting when a poem or some sort of work of art is self-reflexive like that. And and then yeah, with this poem, it's neat that she scares her kid with the goblin because they don't seem to be paying attention. They're like, yeah, whatever. Or like, yeah, she says if that's how they're gonna react, like, yeah, whatever, mom. You're just talking, whatever. Yeah, that the goblins is what she turns to, and yeah, it's interesting to have like a reflection of a childhood experience like that, of what it was like to listen to their parent, and what it was like for to be warned like that, and their reaction to it.
Oh, absolutely. And especially the way it follows you into adulthood, you know. Um, and there can be lessons learned from it, but there can also be that idea of how it can kind of scar the psyche. But great observations there, Robbie. And Rex, your thoughts?
Well, back in the days, these were teachable moments, and you did it with rhythm and rhyme and a sing-song voice that kind of pushed the envelope with a kind of a bit of condescension, and hits on that idea of the guilt trip one can lay on the kids. Yeah, this is what happens when you don't listen, when you don't pay attention.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great comment there, Rex. Um, Yeah, I like that. I really like and appreciate that Joyce shared this, and she writes about her childhood and the things that she learned from her mother. But it is difficult because it can. I imagine, be very frustrating to have to hear, because this is a child who's being a child, as she, says in her poems. Whenever I would act the child, as children always do, she'd sing the Orphaned Annie poem to change my point of view. And I like how the idea of, teaching a child a lesson, but sometimes I think the lesson loses its impact when it's constantly used over and over again. And yet at the end, I think, and this is a great write all the way through. I like that she has the quoted lines from the classic poem that I think fits in there very well. The ending is, all about perspective changing when we grow up. The idea of how, looking in the mirror and seeing her mother reflected in herself, seeing the ghost of the past, the memories that are held in place, and both the good and the bad that we both inherit and learn from our parents, our grandparents, and our ancestors. So just wonderful lines throughout and very well done. All right. And what do we got next, Rex?
We'll Keep the Lights On by T. Monzano. We learn penicillin from mold. We learn distance from fire. Somewhere beneath desert sand, men with wedding rings split the atom open like fruit. History keeps doing this, asking monsters to hold the flashlight. My wife says she loves animals while peeling plastic from a package of ground beef. I tell her that mercy was outsourced years ago. Nobody kills anything at grocery stores anymore. Only buttons get pressed, and trucks arrive at dawn already full of silence. The goblins were clever like that. Not beautiful, but clever enough to turn suffering into infrastructure. The camps taught doctors how long a body could survive cold water. The bombs taught children to look twice at the sky. Even now, we build our brightest futures from things we swear we would never repeat. I think that is why every city glows a little at night. A soft electrical halo powered partly by guilt. And maybe that is all civilization is. A chandelier wired by terrible men, hung carefully above a dinner table so we do not have to eat in the dark. And poem.
Great read there, Rex. And what an amazing write by T. Manzano. And Robbie, your thoughts?
Well, the author's note really caught me. It said a drunk submission. Insert middle finger here. Okay, classic Di Manzano there. I love it. This was great personification because it's goblinizing, if that could be a word. The terrible like crimes of humankind, and like in terms of like the atomic bomb, and the kind of the hypocrisy of when people are like, oh, I love animals, and yet they do the things that harm them. I just very quickly I remember someone who sold me her or gave me her beta fish, and she was all about, oh, I love the environment and everything, but she had this poor thing, it literally in a 1600 milliliter mason jar, and the poor thing had clamped fins. It's like the fins are tucked together for a whole year when I had him, because that he had to tuck his fins all the time because he had no room. And thankfully he excelled in my tank that I gave him. But yeah, you have people that are like that say, oh, I love the environment, blah, 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 blah. But then they do things that are directly to its detriment. But what I felt was like kind of the strongest goblin element, if you want to call that, is especially the nuclear stuff here, about like the bombs. And it reminded me of some of like the awful incidents I've heard of, like when someone forgot to carry the one, and the test was a lot stronger than they thought. And I've mentioned that a couple times before here on the shows, but because of that, they saw each other's skeletons for a second because the x-rays.
Yep.
And then I remember, though, another time where they were doing some sort of experiment, and some idiot used a screwdriver to like move a component around, and like a cover had slipped, and there was a burst of blue light, and everybody in the room realized, oh God, we're all screwed now. And sure enough, everybody in the room died of cancer like 10-15 years later. And yeah, like I remember reading in that story, like, why would somebody with such a precarious experiment be using a screwdriver to move around parts? And that's definitely, by far, that's the biggest goblin, the biggest and most terrible goblin to me here, is that those high levels of technology that are approached so recklessly, and also that are used for such destructive purposes. And it's terrifying to me, the idea of like, poor kids that are going through like nuclear attack drills. It's like, get behind the desk. Oh yeah, like that's going to do anything. Or look, when you see that flash in the sky, when you see a flash in the sky, you better look twice, because might be an atomic flash. Oh, isn't that something nice for a kid to
Yes.
to hear?
Stop,
right?
drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll. Yeah. You're fucked anyway. Forget it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, right? That is so true. That is so true. Like, and like like it said, as much as they had us practice stop, drop, and roll, you really expect that adulthood you would spend more time being on fire. I was actually talking with my teenager the other day, and because they still do like fire drills and tornado drills, but I was telling her how back in the 1980s, the whole plan was just get under this little desk, you know, uh, and that's going to protect you from the tornado. But great comment there, Robbie. Yeah, your comment and T's writing had me thinking about the idea of how we keep using goblins, and throughout history we've used goblins and other mythical, mischievous creatures to blame for wrongdoing, when really so much we are the goblins. Nowadays, mankind are the goblins. We are the causer oftentimes of our own problems. So yeah, definitely a great comment. And Rex, you did a great read of that. Your thoughts?
Oh, he's got quite a bit of information. I mean, look at this first couple lines. We learned penicillin from mold. There's truth in that. I mean, I think the Egyptians were the first one that understood that note of by leaving bread in beer, and found out a little bit of the benefits. And we learned distance from fire. Yeah, hot, 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 hot. You burn yourself. And then that note of that third stanza walks me with that idea of what Oppenheimer said when he when they first did it back in the day. What was it? The Trinity test site. Uh, I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. And then history keeps doing this, asking monsters to hold a flashlight. Yeah, I mean, you look at what Edison did in the late 19th century to uh, uh, to disprove Tesla's note of AC instead of DC. Yet he didn't bother telling him the reality that AC was a better way to go, because with what he wanted to do was put a little box in every corner as a note to delivering the electricity. So he'd go out and he'd electrocute dogs, cats, animals of all kinds to prove that AC is not good. Yet AC is the thing that holds the world together today because of the way it runs. Then that note, I tell him Mercy was outsourced years ago. That note of loves animals while peeling plastic on package of ground beef. Walks on note of hypocrisy. That nobody kills anything in grocery stores anymore. And we forget. Uh, we didn't used to buy things in grocery stores. You go down to the meat market, the abattoir back in the day, and you brought your meat there. And that note's only buttons get pressed. The truth in that. Trucks arrive at dawn already full of silence. Truth in that too. Refrigerated. And the goblins were clever like that. Not beautiful, but clever enough to turn suffering into infrastructure. So it hits on that note of the productivity of these animal farms that are just pure uh, note instead of actual animal farming. Uh, and you got that sort of camps taught doctors how long a body could survive cold water, amongst other things. Yes, and I like that note. I think that is why every city glows a little at night, a soft electrical halo powered partly by guilt. And maybe that is all civilization is, a chandelier wired by terrible men, hung carefully above a dinner table so we do not have to eat in the dark. Oh, yeah, that dark used to be the fearful place, because lots of creatures came out at night to feed on us. So kind of walks in the hypocrisy. Even though we progressed, hypocrisy still rings a quiet and subtle underlying note.
I've seen that Halo Rex. I was lucky enough to be at a good astronomical observatory, and it was like outside the city. Like the real ones are the ones that are outside the city, of course, so that you can, actually
Actually
see.
see it.
And
Yeah.
and there's like so many stars, I almost couldn't tell the constellations which was surreal in itself. But the part that I'm talking about, that you talked about, I saw the halo of light over my city, and it was like, oof. You don't realize how much light is actually produced by your city until you're about maybe 20 kilometers or so out of it, and you can see the whole city in like one perspective. And I was just like, oh my god, wow, that's so much light.
Yeah, and you don't realize how black and how vast the sky is until you live outside a city, so you can actually view the sky in all its glory.
I could barely tell Orion the Hunter. Like I could just make it out, but it was almost swamped by all the stars that were there. Like you had a lot harder time telling the constellations apart, or seeing them, just because there's so many stars. It's just amazing.
It is. All right, Pam.
Yeah, great comments there. This is a strong right by T. Manzano. I do like how he does, like I said earlier, he speaks on the idea that we have become the goblins. We have become the monsters. You know, we live in a time where we face the reality of no longer being able to blame the myths on our problems. And I think there's a great imagery throughout, really hard hitting. And I like how this takes a look at the idea of civilization falling apart. So excellent, right? And very well done. All right. And what do we have next, Rex?
Goblins Got Me by I'm a Rhymer. This is a very long one just for you, Robbie.
Oh, great. Well, oops, gotta get my mic here. I am definitely not using any voices of any sort for this. I just kill my throat if I do that. So Goblins Got Me. Okay. Goblins selling forbidden fruit. Warning to humans to beware that such is an evil pursuit by the goblins, who do not care that such fruit accepted within one's body does assure ill fate. Guilty of self-destruction sin, resulting in tormented state. Even though I knew all of this, I bought the goblin's fruit to be taken into ecstasy and bliss. Ruled now, now ruled by my insanity. Goblin's forbidden fruit I take, paid for by my soul to forsake. End poem. I was waiting to see if it was actually a short poem and you were just pulling my leg. I couldn't scroll down. I couldn't scroll down to see if it was or not, but I was like, okay, and Rex might be pulling my leg.
Yes,
Yeah.
well,
You were the
considering
goblin now.
considering it's Ima, I mean, yeah, considering it's Ima Rima, she always writes in the same style, so you knew it wasn't going to be a long one.
Yeah.
But great read there, Robbie. And Rex, your thoughts?
Well, I like the divide in this. The goblins selling forbidden fruit, warning humans to beware that such is an illegal pursuit by the goblins who do not care. So, you know what? They're actually forewarning you, but you buy the fruit anyway. So, you know what? You get what you get because you are foolish enough to impart and partake in that to begin with. So, ha, the goblins didn't get you. You were got because of the goblins. And the goblin is you.
Yep, yep, exactly. You know, goblins don't bring anything out of us that wasn't already there in the first place. Great comment, Rex. And Robbie, your thoughts?
Well, this weaves wonderfully into what I've been thinking about lately. Or I could use a fancy word and say it dovetails, although dovetails isn't a very goblin-y word. But I've been thinking so much about how there's the inner demon in you, and that, or there's bad things in you that, and you have to surpass them, because if you don't, someone else can bring that out of you, right? And it's like and that's the thing, is you'll have more reasons to accept the fruit if you have those demons in you, and if you have guilt, if you have this or that. And it's like the one scene that I've become obsessed with in the movies with the Green Goblin lately is like where Spider-Man has so much anger in him because of what the Goblin did, but the Goblin's able to twist that anger, and he, with guilt, he's making Spider-Man feel guilty. He's like, you were, I was there, I struck the blow, but you were the one who killed her. Like, he's emphasizing the point that he couldn't save her, right? Like, he didn't have enough skill, didn't have enough strength or whatever to save her. And he's playing on that guilt, and he's just making him lose his morality because he's just beating on him viciously, right? And I've just come across other examples too. And this poem is like that to a T, where the goblins, like you say, like they're appealing to what the worst parts of you are that are inside of you, and the parts that can be tempted, and it kind of, it's a little bit like you always have like the forbidden fruit, like you have that in the Garden of Eden, you have forbidden fruit in other tales and that too. And yeah, you have no one to blame but yourself if you decide that you want to take the goblin's fruit. And there's so often that human beings are like, you know what, it's like a deal with the devil, right? You say to yourself, I don't care if I have to pay the price. I want this now. I want what they're going to give me now, and damn the consequences after.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Great comment there, Robbie. Yeah, this connected really well with the poem, The Goblin Market. I like the imagery in this. It's very visceral. I like how it does speak on consequences, how the idea of getting what we want, getting what we really ache for and desire, can often lead to ruin of the soul, can lead to complete madness. And I do think there's great lines throughout, but I did especially like where it says, I bought the goblin's fruit to be taken to ecstasy and bliss, now ruled by my insanity. So it, to me, that speaking on taking the goblin's fruit to find ecstasy and bliss it speaks on addiction, it speaks on drugs, and it speaks on that once that addiction takes over, the mind and the spirit fall apart. So excellent write by Ima Rima, and very well done. And what do we got next, Rex?
In My Head or Under My Bed by Monty G25. And you got a SoundCloud.
Yes, we do. And I will go bounce over there and grab it.
You seek to hide from goblins, you said. Small ghoulish monsters inside your head. They hide in your mind's nooks and crannies, pretending to be your ugly aunts and nannies. This is but a myth evolving over many a long mile. They are nothing but disgustingly ugly, evil or vile. With innocent faces, they have fear on their side. We see them as either old Mr. Jekyll or Dr. Hyde. Sweet and innocent, very charming and pure, with the looks of a saint, even a tad demure. Life has been very cruel in their ugly design, but really, they are nothing short of divine. Merely a figment of your vivid imagination, ugly dreams seeking your soul's damnation. Will you go to bed with both eyes closed then? Or wait for the evil goblin to pop out of his den? Many stories told that still reside in your dreams, believing they never will surface, or so it seems. They live within the confines of your poor head. But wait, what's that noise from under your bed?
Oh, that was fabulous. Oh, bravo. This is such a great write and wonderful presentation provided. I like his AN where he says, are they fact or fiction, or our mind's evil friction? Are they really alive or dead, or buried in our feeble head? Brought to you by the Goblins of Bulgaria. Very cool. And Rex, your thoughts?
Well, that was comical, even circus-like, something you'd find at the sideshow as they offered up a goblin for you to see. You get this little bit of music and the voice to go along with it. So I thought that's pretty cool. And that note of life has been very cruel in their ugly design, but really they are nothing short of divine. And that note of what was it? Being offered up as demure. It was a nice touch as well. Oh, sweet and innocent, very charming and pure, with the looks of a saint, even a tad demure. Oh, nice. That third stanza I liked was pretty good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to agree. Great comment there, Rex. And Robbie, your thoughts?
Well, what was interesting to me is that it seemed to, well, it mostly presented the goblin as being an inner thing. The thoughts in your head, the maybe the unbidden thoughts, that sort of thing. But then it says, well, what's that under my bed? So there's that, after that there's a suggestion of the goblin being an external thing. So that really interested me. I like that. I like that he covered both of those, because that's one of the things that I've been focusing on with the my thoughts on, inner and outer demons and that. And it's definitely this is definitely a theme that I'm going to be playing with poetically in the next few couple of weeks, probably, actually. So it's nice that this contest has come along to give me ideas and inspire me. And yeah, he had I like how he had the laugh at the end. And if there's anything that deserves a wicked laugh, it's a goblin, and it's a goblin poem. And with the setting of, the dreams and the bed and that, I think that's perfect, because that's like the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, or the unconscious mind, and the things that go on between those two spheres. And I'm gonna have to share with Monty after. I found a great clip of Joker's laugh versus Goblin's laugh, because they both have an insane laugh, but they're insane in different ways. One is just kind of just straight up insane, and the other is more like really evil. And both are like really scary to hear, but scary for different reasons. And it was a really cool, like, thematic uh sort of a video to see the presentation of madness and evil. So uh yeah, that was a fun thing to see too. And yeah, again, very much I enjoyed the fact that it had both the internal and the external goblins in here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to agree. Great comment, Robbie. Now, Robbie, if you do end up writing a goblin poem, make sure to bring it to our next our Echoes in the Dark show. So.
Okay, will do.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I love the rhyme and flow in this. I like how I really enjoy and appreciate how he had so much fun with the topic. Like, it, to me, it was just so spot on for, like, when I think of goblins, and the idea how it's like both dark and fun at the same time. And I too really saw and liked how he spoke on the idea of not only goblins, like he focused obviously on goblins because that's the topic, but if you think about it, like, you know, there's always these myths and these creatures that it's like, okay, you know, is there the possibility of them being real? Because there are a lot of myths, a lot of legends and cryptids that, you know, it's like this very much, there have been enough people who have witnessed these that it very much is a possibility that they exist. And then sometimes we create horrors in order to better understand the medical issues that in the past, you know, and then time periods where it was like, okay, this is why people are having seizures. Okay, this is why a person is behaving this way. There's always some sort of devil or creature to blame. And now it's kind of like that idea in this poem of, is this the truth? Is the truth that there actually is an existence of this creature, or is the creature what lives inside of me? And definitely the evil laugh was a very nice touch. And all right, what do we got next, Rex?
Goblin Lore, Boy Weaver of Dreams. SoundCloud.
Yes, yes. And I will go grab that. All right. Make sure the volume's turned up because she's got a very quiet reading voice. All right, so let me find that. Here we go.
Far beyond the curtain of time, hidden from our short-sighted view, there can be found a world that glows with a pearly light, benign, soothing, and matriarchal. This idyll is ruled by a fair and generous queen, who tries to relate to everyone. Here is a typical day at court. I take your point. You gnomes say you will have nothing to do with tooth fairies, but for us, we do not have a choice. In books, we see pretty fairies depicted with gossamer wings, while the fairies we know have sharp, pointed teeth. Also known for magical mayhem, the tooth fairies' other persona is very clever propaganda, so that they can continue to trade in children's wishes. When garnered, each wish is worth an ounce of elfin gold used for trading with goblin clans. Talk to me not of goblin ways, a darker path by far. Unspoken of for eons past, it will remain so. At the full moon, high-pitched evil giggles can be heard. Glowing eyes flicker behind the tree line to tell of nefarious deeds and dangerous deals being secretly agreed on. As we would rather none believe they exist, we'll keep the status quo intact. Let them have the gold.
Yes, yes, exactly. Oh, great read and write here, Weaver. Thank you so much for the SoundCloud. It is greatly appreciated. And she wrote to a quote by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, goblins are cruel, wicked, and bad-hearted. They make no beautiful things, but they make many clever ones. And Rex, your thoughts?
Oh, I like that note of truth in that second stanza. What was it? In books, we see pretty fairies depicted with gossamer wings, while the fairies we know have sharp, pointed teeth. Yes, the fairies are not the Disney World adaptation of Tinkerbell. They do have sharp teeth, so I like that. And the truth with the high pitched evil giggles can be heard on the back end behind the tree line. Well, they're willing to do business as long as you got gold to trade.
Oh, Very true. Very true. Absolutely. Yeah. Disney definitely waters down a lot of those fairy tales and the myths and legends. So great comment there, Rex. And Robbie, your thoughts.
Oh, I definitely took note of that too and noticed it. Uh, it's like the Brothers Grimm, they really they didn't hold back, and people forget that the truest fairies, like the truest presentation of them, is a lot more vicious could almost be a word for in terms of how they are. And that's the thing is like, especially this is actually something I said just today, is you do not want to piss off a fairy. They just, the vengeance that they take upon you, the revenge, it is no small thing. It's like, oh, I'll just make all your children infertile for 5 generations, that's all. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to bug you a little bit or whatever. The vengeance is just profoundly vicious. And so I enjoyed that she pointed that out. And I like how she turned it from those figures then to the towards the end, like towards the goblins. And I'm thinking that I felt like she used the goblins as kind of like the ultimate personification of the darkest path or the darkest part of fairy lore, and just like the lore in general of all those otherworldly creatures. And she says, well, let's not speak upon them. And so it's interesting to see her take that kind of little not winding quite, but that little path from all of those fairy folk and everything that we know, and saying they're not what we think they are, and then going to the goblins afterwards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great comment there, Robbie. Yeah, I like how this speaks on propaganda. So like it's great storytelling. It's a wonderful take on the chosen prompt. And it speaks on, the myths and the mythology of fairies and how actually dark that can be, and the darkness and the nefarious, as she says, the nefarious deeds of the goblins. But she mentions propaganda, very clever propaganda, so they can continue to trade in children's wishes. The idea that and so it brings me to reality. While this is about mythology, it also brings me to reality, and how like during World War I and World War II, and even throughout history, there's always, in order to get people over to your side, no matter how cruel your side is, you use propaganda in order to pull them over in order to influence their thinking. And so I like that this poem has that duality and those layers within its darkness. There's great lines throughout. The end couplet with keep the status quo intact, let them have the gold, makes me think of, the reference to the gold makes me think of leprechauns, who are very much very similar in their presentation of being mischievous to goblins. But I think this is just a strong right all the way through, and very well done by Weaver of Dreams. All right, Rex, what do we have next?
We have Evergreen Recluse by Shadows Night, and you've got another SoundCloud.
Yes, we do. All right, here we go.
Succulent fruits to tempt your flight of fancy, mischief wild and antsy, born of vibrant roots. Hark the migrant flutes of misfit fantasy. The piper of the wayward calls thee to wilder pursuits. Come near, little missus, let me inhale the fragrant scent of your fear. Care for red apples or golden quinces? My vagrant whisper curls inside your ear. Your skin lacerated with stolen wet kisses. Radiant gifts and eerie secrets nestled here. My lost lamb, hidden among the ferns and moss, thinly veiled, sparsely clothed, plus one silver cross. My eyes be the first to sin, followed by wet lips that grin. My thirst grows and churns within. Oh, the sight of exposed skin gloss. Set me loose, too slippery a creature for the hangman's noose. Come late August, I am the hunter, you'll be the goose. Enter my muse, the kingdom of evergreen recluse, a porcelain doll for my amusement and misuse. Ripe harvest to be squeezed into a pleasant juice. My hunger bites worst at scabies. It's daisies in the mist. Your scent drifts rich. I sow my patience, knot by knot, stitch by stitch. You are the oasis in my ungodly wilderness. I temper my flames to a low and hungry glow. Seductive mind games weave through slow, tossing patterns. I stroke your auburn hair by the embers of dying lanterns. By the time you wake again, you'll be far deep below, forever mine. In the pitch black heart of my caverns.
That was just absolutely fabulous. Oh my goodness gracious. That music had me thinking that Fiddler on the Roof and the Phantom of the Opera had a love child. But it fits so well with the right, I have to say. Rex, your thoughts?
That was full on gypsy magic.
Yep.
Right tempo and tone, the music, the little hand squeeze box, not the full one, the little ones, and kind of a violin note to it. So I definitely go with that note. It walks in that idea of a gypsy storytelling moment around a campfire.
Yes, yes, definitely had that great dark story. telling element to it, or shared around a campfire. I can see that for sure. A great comment there, Rex. And Robbie, your thoughts?
I like that it presented that sort of insidious, like that whispering in your ear, you know, the tempt the succulent fruits to tempt your flight of fancy, mischief, wild and antsy. And I think, does it mention here about I thought maybe it mentioned a whisper in the ear, but yeah, it presents that more seductive part. That's the thing. It can be either more blunt or and terrible, or more like seductive and, you know, like luring you that way. I temper my flames to a low and hungry glow. Seductive mind games weave through slow. And so yeah, you have more of that sort of manifestation. And what T Manzano was saying there in chat, I was severely tempted to actually take a plate and smash it on the floor and not have
Yeah.
myself muted, and everybody would say, "What the hell was that?" But no, I don't. I can't afford that. I can't afford that. Not in this. Not
Yeah.
in this economy. I can't afford to bust a plate in this economy.
Well, you did hear that in the second stanza. My vagrant whisper curls inside your ear.
Yep. Yeah. That was a great stanza for sure. Great comment, Robbie. Yeah, well, first of all, he messaged me and told me how much fun he had had with this right. So I was really glad he had a lot of fun. This is another one that I feel is just spot on for the topic of goblins. I mean, this contest, like I said, it didn't get a huge response, but it got these great quality responses. I like how this does look at the fruit that's written about in the goblin market as a sensual offering that can not be resist. So there's this idea of the temptation of, and the humor. There's humor in this, but there's also dark sensuality, and I think he balances them both really well. And I know you guys are right. I know you guys are right that it definitely has that gypsy music feel, but I can't stop thinking about Fiddler on the Roof. Um, but and the Phantom of the Opera.
Well, it did
Um,
start more operatic at first. Like, there's a more operatic voice, and then it
yes, the
became
voice
more
was
personal.
operatic, and
Yeah.
the yes, definitely. And it worked well together. It really did. It really worked well together. And I like how he writes about how the goblin is a form of a trickster. You know, he says the forest trickster spirit set me loose. So, you know, the idea of the goblin being sent forth. It also makes me think of Puck from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Um, this poem brings that character to mind because he's also similar in that to goblins, in that he's a very mischievous character. Um, but I found this absolutely entertaining with great lines throughout. Um, and I really did particularly like that one stanza with the forest trickster spirit set me loose, too slippery a creature for the hanged man's noose. Come late August, I am the hunter, you'd be the goose. Enter my muse, the kingdom of evergreen recluse. You know, wonderful lines and very well done. Well, this has been just a fabulous dark show tonight. We will have carryovers for the next Echoes in the Dark. We will have at least, I believe, a couple of goblin rights. We will have, yes, we will have Aphasiana and Peter Solway as carryovers, plus if Robbie brings something. And then we'll also have the rights from the contest, They Make a Desert and Call It Peace. So yeah, and thank you as always, Rex, for being an amazing co-host. I really appreciate you. Thank you, Robbie, for calling in and joining us. Thank you to T. Manzano Hats, and let's see here, Yumpy, and I'm trying to remember who else we had. Oh my goodness gracious. But, to everybody who hung on the board, thank you to Fill My Eyes for all she does. Thank you to everybody that is listening now or will be listening later. We truly appreciate you all. Please make sure to keep an eye out on the contests and topic boards put up by our late night poets, hosts, and hostesses, because you're sure to find something to inspire. You can join tonight, Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, Fill My Eyes and IntimidusRex for open poetry. Saturday, there will not be a show, so that'll be a night off for people. And Sunday, you can join IntimidusRex for rhythm and rhyme, and he has a contest up featuring lyrics and music by AP poet Mike Horsfall. So make sure to check that out and see if you're inspired. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful night, Rex and Robbie, and have a wonderful night, everyone.